first. I'm Nichelle Poston along with Mark Eichman. Shirley Min is off this week.
The 90,000 who braved the rain and mud at Firefly have helped put the four-day concert on the map. A report on the future shape of the festival.
Its lab name is shear thickening fluid, but University of Delaware researchers hope it becomes the next generation of body armor.
First visits with Delaware Representative Tim Dukes to see how he's taken his day job to be a mentor.
First, your public media news magazine starts now.
It's been quite a June around the Dover International Speedway. NASCAR kicked things off. The Big Barrel concert wraps up the month. In between, there was Firefly. It was another record setter for the first date in terms of people, mud, musical acts, and image. First Look reports on the festival's impact on music and what next year's concert goers might expect.
There's a bit more of a laid-back vibe at festivals. I mean, it's exciting, but people sort of have this long, drawn-out experience, and I think they're kind of like, they're not in a rush, you know, to see anything.
I think it's like more people, like a greater experience, like great positive vibes.
I really love that sort of like open, outdoor, laid-back vibe you get from a festival.
It's a great turnout. There are a lot of cool people out. It was fun, man. And then we played at Coffee House at like 5:45, and that was rad as well. It's been really fun.
90,000 music fans sweated, sang, and danced the weekend away at the Woodlands in Dover for the 4th annual Firefly Music Festival. The early success of this event had Delaware Governor Jack Markell just gushing with positive vibes.
This is amazing. I mean, 90,000 people, great music, great food and stuff to drink. It's like, what could possibly be better than this? And all these people coming to Delaware.
For many music fans and even performers, Firefly is their first experience in the first state.
What did Delaware, boys? What did Delaware? Hey, here we are, man. To Firefly.
There's like a running joke today that it's everybody's first time in Delaware always.
Right.
For some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's one of those places that most bands don't get to.
You think about it, this is bigger by a pretty good margin than our largest city. And you know, it's basically 10% of the state's population. It's awesome.
This year, music fans even got to take a part of Delaware home with them in the form of mud that was caked on the bottom of shoes and on pretty much everything else that touched the ground.
Yeah, the mud is an issue, but we're not going to talk about that.
The mud isn't nice. We don't like the mud.
The mud. The mud.
Festival director Greg Bostrom says organizers added lots of grass to limit the dust, which was a big problem at last year's festival, but dust certainly wasn't a problem this year.
We did a ton of work preparing for dust, and then it poured rain all day yesterday, so Mother Nature was looking out for us anyway.
It takes a massive crew to put the festival on, work that starts well before a single note is played.
There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes. It takes an army of 5,000 plus to put this on. So we're just proud of how everyone bands together, stands behind the Firefly vision, and how they're really stewards for the event.
It's been great, like the whole experience with Firefly. The people are great, people that run the festival. It's really awesome.
And although strong storms interrupted the music on Saturday night, the rest of the weekend went off with very little trouble.
Everyone's so happy. It's really great.
And while organizers aren't sure if next year could be bigger than the 90,000 that packed the Woodlands this year, they always hope to improve the experience.
I think for Firefly, we just want to be better every year. I mean, in some ways that does include expanding the scope to people that aren't here this year. So we're looking for ways to expand the site in smart ways that don't limit the individual experience. That might be multiple weekends, it might be more property, but we just want to expand in smart ways and continue to grow the experience for the people here.
See you next time.
Bostrom says one way the festival could grow is by adding another weekend of Firefly, similar to California's Coachella Festival, which already stretches over 2 weekends.
And Mark, I understand another weekend full of music is underway, this time in Dover.
That's right. This time it's country music taking over. 30 to 35,000 country music fans attending Big Barrel this weekend with some of the biggest country acts like Blake Shelton, Miranda Lambert, Carrie Underwood, even Lynyrd Skynyrd, and a lot more. It's interesting that 35,000 was roughly the same number of people that attended the inaugural Firefly 4 years ago. Greg Bostrom tells me there's no reason to think Big Barrel can't be on that same trajectory and eventually grow to 80 or 90,000 in a few years, like we've seen at Firefly. Country music certainly is the most popular radio format in the nation, so Big Barrel could just be the next big thing. They certainly have booked the top acts in the industry for this first year.
Okay. Well, explain this. You got to see Paul McCartney on Friday night, the first night, but you did not get to show him in your story. Why?
Well, with the festival kind of controls what we can and can't show. The way we get our credentials, we can't show any stage or any performance, or else they'll boot us. So the promoters sell the rights to selected media companies like Access Television, which streamed some of the performances this year. So the best place to view these images, probably through social media or the company's website.
We can also trust you as well. I understand they already set the dates for next year?
For 2016, that's right. The 5th year of Firefly will start June 16th and run through June 19th next year. Tickets on sale July 15th of this year, only $249.
Only $249. Mark is back next week with a report on the Big Barrel Music Festival.
Coming up on First, this is STF. It could be the next big thing when it comes to protecting soldiers and police officers. Dennis Davenport grew up without a father. Now a Delaware legislator helps him overcome the odds. Later, we head to Milford to decorate some cool cakes. The third in our series of First Extras, this one is titled Truth Teller. Nichelle Polston has been working on this program, so Nichelle, tell us what it's all about.
Okay, so Mark, the story focuses on one person, a Wilmington resident by the name of Chiffon Taylor. She has a very unique story, but I think what caught my attention is the fact that she has an interesting way of connecting with people and finding out their truth.
And one of the people she connects with is Ashley Biden, daughter of Vice President Joe Biden.
Yes, Ashley is very active in the Delaware community, and because Chiffon is actually active as well, they met through mutual community work, and they developed a strong bond. So.
And we should mention that their connection their interview was done before Beau Biden's passing, but
yes.
There's really a theme that runs through this program.
The theme is truth. So we'll get to listen and hear about other people's truth, and we actually have a sample of what we found.
My truth is that you come out, you roll your sleeves up, and you go in the community like I do. And you say, listen, what can I do to help?
My truth is these are interesting times we're living in America, because the next generation are definitely the ones to watch.
I wanted to create a platform where we could share untold, undertold, and mistold stories and be able to share them truthfully. I was born to my 17-year-old single mother trying to raise a child at 17 is a very hard thing to do. So my grandparents took a very active role. They live on the north side of Wilmington. There was a lot of crime. Like, you know, there were shootings, you know, there were, you know, guys who sold drugs, you know, across the street. I didn't meet my father until I was 3. Prior to my being born, he was sent to prison. There's this instinctual distrust of communities like the ones that I come from. So I'm curious, like, how, like, what does that, like, that dichotomy, you know, look like for you as you try to police a community that, you know, doesn't necessarily trust the system?
Some people don't know me, view me as, you know, an occupying army. That, you know, you're there only to oppress and to drag people off to jail. I have a very strong faith. I converted to Catholicism in 2000. Being part of that faith has changed a lot, how I view people. So when I do get that kind of pushback, I just look beyond.
You know, the way that you've kind of just championed wanting other men to embrace it. Tell me a little bit about why, you know, that's so important.
Yoga for me is being okay with who you are, being committed to something bigger than yourself, building relationships with people. It doesn't even have to look like stretching on a mat. It can look like just being a good mother.
What is it that you wanted to expose as your truth?
My truth is that I'm vulnerable. Yet courageous. That I truly see the light, the beauty in all people.
So we have Shafine Taylor, the woman behind the TruthTellersProject.org here on set. Welcome.
Thank you.
How did this all get started?
Aside from being born out of my love for stories and writing, when I was 19, I read the autobiography of Angela Davis, and I was really just blown away at her story and what would have happened to my own experience if I would have never read the book. And if she would have never shared. And I thought about how many other people needed to have their voices amplified, their stories shared. And that's really where the initial concept was born.
You became very interested in finding what other people's stories were, and you decided to tell your own. Was that a brave thing, or was that hard for you to do?
It was definitely a test of my own vulnerability that I require of others when they share their stories. So it is a very brave thing to be vulnerable and kind of bear your truth.
Anyone stand out to you in particular?
There was one man who particularly stood out to me. His name was William. And he was selling candy in downtown Ronnie Square, and he mentors boys at the POW. And I asked him what his truth was, and he said, "Don't waste your light." And that has kind of sat in my chest and resonated with me since that day. So yes, William, and don't waste your light.
Are you excited about the website? People will be tuning in.
I am. I'm very excited. I'm excited about the website. I'm excited about the show, but still also very nervous.
Okay.
This was an idea in my head a year and a half ago, and to see it kind of come to life in this way, to see it have breadth, is exciting and overwhelming.
Make sure you tune in to Truth Teller, a WHYY First Extra on June 29th, Monday night at 9 p.m.
Delaware is known for making tough stuff. We know about DuPont gunpowder. They later discovered nylon as a material to replace silk in stockings. And of course, there's Gore-Tex. But some University of Delaware researchers are hoping they've hit on the next tough item. Todd Bookman of WHYY's Health and Science Desk and The Pulse is here with more. Welcome, Todd.
Thanks, Mark. The research going on here could produce the next generation of body armor. It's part liquid, part solid, and it sounds very futuristic. But it's a breakthrough that has been decades in the making. Dr. Norman Wagner has spent the past 25 years working on the material. Sometimes called liquid armor, its technical name is shear thickening fluid.
You think of it as like a liquid ceramic, and so the material will flow, but at some point, the material under high stress or high shear conditions, it actually jams together, and when it jams together, it acts like a solid ceramic material.
Particles of silica remain suspended inside the fluid until called into action when placed under stress or shear conditions. That's when they lock up and form a solid, making it a useful addition to things like bulletproof vests.
Kevlar works very well against ballistic threats, but it doesn't work very well against stab, surprisingly. So here in this project, we've taken shear thickening fluid that you've seen in the jar, we've intercalated it or infused it with the Kevlar to make a material that is not only ballistic resistant, but also stab resistant.
Wagner's research partner, Richard Dombrowski, shows how untreated Kevlar can be penetrated by a sharp object.
You can see the all goes right through. But if we infuse that with the shear thickening fluid, you can see it's still flexible and lightweight, just like the normal Kevlar. But now, if he takes the awl and tries to stab through it, you see he won't be able to get through it. You'll be able to push the material into the foam, but you can't puncture through the Kevlar anymore. And it works really well.
This multi-threat material could protect soldiers from shrapnel injuries or prison guards from shanks. Wagner is partnering with the Army Research Laboratory in Aberdeen, Maryland on some further tests. His company, STF Technologies, is also looking into options for surgical gloves.
We could stop typical surgical needles or hypodermic needles from going through this material, and yet the material itself is very flexible, very comfortable.
Needle stick injuries are a major risk to healthcare workers. 385,000 take place each year, according to the CDC. The challenge here is keeping the gloves supple yet strong.
It has to be thin, has to be comfortable, and at the same time provide a meaningful level of protection.
When it comes to protecting football players, Wagner sees his shear thickening fluid as a potential new type of padding for helmets.
The foam that you see here is the typical foam that's used in typical helmets these days.
PhD student Melissa Gordon shows how a steel ball barely slows down upon impact.
Yeah, that energy is transmitted into your skull. You can see it bounce off the table below.
But when the foam is infused with shear thickening fluid,
and the ball hits, it just absorbs all of the energy instead of transmitting it into your skull and ultimately giving you a concussion.
So we've got football players, surgeons, and soldiers covered. One more idea: astronauts, protecting them from the tiny micrometeoroids that pose a risk during spacewalks.
We can't use the same materials that we use here on Earth in the extreme environments of space. So that poses new scientific challenges for us. And so the students working together with NASA scientists, we're trying to develop materials that'll work in space.
NASA is funding this research and plans to bring the material to the International Space Station in 2017. Wagner is excited about all the possibilities, but says the real value here is advancing the field of science.
But we're just curiosity-driven engineers and scientists here trying to understand the world and engineer things based upon that understanding.
A quarter century later, the potential for shear thickening fluid seems larger than ever. The challenge here is turning it into the products that can have a real impact.
Shear thickening fluid kind of rolls right off the tongue. Need to work on a smarter name for that. But is there a timeline for when we might see some of this research actually coming out into products?
Dr. Wagner was smartly reluctant to make any predictions on this front. For the liquid armor materials, he's working with an outside company to mass produce bolts of treated Kevlar. That's always the battle, though, moving these things from the lab to the factory in a cost-effective way. But the surgical gloves may be the closest item to market, but again, he couldn't give any specifics.
That seems like a fascinating place to work. A lot of things coming out. Anything else interesting in the pipeline?
Dr. Wagner was really excited about the promise of a new self-healing material. One of his PhD students, Melissa Gordon, is working on this substance. It's flexible and strong, but when penetrated, the material works to heal itself, reforming around the breach. And something like this could have huge potential in commercial products, think car tires. But again, as groundbreaking as these things appear, there can be a tremendously long road from bench to store shelves.
It really seems like science fiction. He is Todd Bookman, a member of the team on the Pulse of WHYY-FM. So what other stories are you working on for the Pulse coming up?
Well, I've got a piece coming up about hospital disinfectants that could be able to handle things like MRSA, and also a fun piece about the history of the talking machine.
Sounds good. We'll look forward to it. Don't forget you can listen to The Pulse each Friday morning at 9 on WHYY-FM 90.9. It also airs Sunday at 10 a.m.
Did you just tune in to First? Then you'll want to go to WHYY.org/first to watch online. You can also sign up for our e-newsletter. You'll be the first to know about what WHYY is doing in Delaware. Delaware Representative Tim Dukes of Laurel is just one of the many legislators in Dover trying to finish up the legislative docket before June 30th. While Dukes has a lot of tough issues to deal with, before then, there's one item that he's certainly proud of, and that's being a mentor.
I want to become a Delaware certified police officer.
Dennis Davenport is a determined young man. The Laurel, Delaware native recently accomplished one goal.
Graduating from Valley Forge was a big deal. I spent 3 there. I started out as a post-grad, and then I went full-time college.
The 2015 Valley Forge Military Academy and college grad says growing up without a father wasn't easy. But he never felt like a victim, thanks to lots of love and support from his mother.
My mom, she raised all of us. She's a great lady. She's all of our backbone.
Dennis is the youngest of my four, and I knew he was going to be something else when he was little. I just knew I had to keep him busy, and not only him, but my other sons as well. I had to keep them busy, keep them doing something so they were not getting into trouble.
Sarita says when things started to look bleak, she turned to her faith.
And I said, God, please just help me to raise my sons. I'm not a man and I can't do it, but if you would put male role models in their life that will help them to be, good citizens, that is my prayer. And I still believe God put so many people in my sons' lives, like Representative Tim and his family took Dennis in.
Representative Tim Dukes says he knew when he met Dennis that he was going to accomplish great things. Dukes, who was the pastor of Central Worship Center in Laurel, started mentoring Dennis.
When I met him, when he was about 4th or 5th grade, there was this big infectious smile, but yet with a sense of composure that there was something about him. You just knew that there was a precious gift inside of him.
Dennis accompanied Dukes on several mission trips as part of Reach Out to the World Missions.
On missions trips to Jamaica. And he would kind of be almost like my own little personal bodyguard whenever I would go somewhere. And people would look at me and look at him and wonder what this white man is doing with a black teenager. And whenever they would ask, because Jamaican people are very curious at times, Dennis would say, "This is my pops." And it was just so funny watching their expression, because that's what Dennis calls me pop and I call him son.
Dukes says even at a young age, Dennis was determined to not let other people's opinion of him dissuade him.
He's not afraid to stand all by himself when he knows he's right. And there's a tenacity and there's a character that's inside of him that's unbreakable.
It's that character that's not stopping Dennis from giving up on his dream of becoming a police officer, despite the growing outcry from the African American community concerning the police.
I know there's a lot of things going on, but if you want to see change in something, the only way is to go into it. There's a lot of people who complain about what law enforcement does, how things aren't done right. Well, everyone can apply somewhere, so that's I'm trying to do my part, and that's what I'm going to do.
And how will Dennis Davenport do his part? He's in the process of applying for police training to get to his ultimate goal to become a state trooper. But could he also end up in politics, following in the footsteps of his mentor? Representative Duke says he would not be the least bit surprised if that happened.
For 10 years, Trisha Vicks has been decorating cakes. What started as a hobby became a passion and then became a full-time career. Our first experience this week takes you to Trisha's Milford Bakery so you can experience what goes into her beautiful cake designs yourself. And it's more than just eggs and flour.
My name is Latricia Vicks. I am the owner of Patty Cakes here in Milford, Delaware. I have been decorating cakes for approximately 10 years now, and it started out as a wonderful hobby. I'm an engineer by trade. I started cakes as a creative outlet type of deal. I have a very large family. I have 10 children, and when I got to child number 6, I was a little stir crazy and just needed a little me time. So I took a class at the craft store, which I found to be very rewarding. The very funny story is we had to bring in a cake at the end of the class, and mine was the absolute worst cake out of everyone's. People felt sorry for me. They were giving me like extra sugar pieces they had made. They were like, "Here, you can use mine," and they were very kind. It was really bad, but it was just very fun. I started as a hobby. I did really, really bad cakes for family. No one complained. They were gracious. They were free. So after some time, I started to get better. And it became a passion. And I always tell people, if you pursue your passion, you'll never work a day in your life. So that's where I am. What I would do is I would say, I really want to learn how to make a flower. So I would sit and I would practice and I would practice. And I always tell people persistence and consistency, it breeds results. So it just was over time and really, really just applying myself. Inspiration comes from so many things for me. I can walk into a store and see a very pretty pattern on a plate. I can see a pattern in fabric, and that becomes my next cake design. So wherever I am, and all of these things now become inspiration because you are constantly thinking about your craft. I enjoy baking, but I like when I have the cake baked, it's iced, and I have a blank canvas sitting in front of me. You know, now I get to either start sculpting, or I get to start adding color, or I get to start adding texture, or I get to, you know, really bring this alive. I want to grow with my clients, and I do have some clients that I really have been growing with. And they come to me for the very, very important milestones in their life. And to be able to share in that, you feel like you make a difference. You know, you do make a difference because these are you're creating memories. So that's very important to me, and that really helps to keep me motivated. It's about an experience. We want it to feel special. When you come in and you pick it up. So that's like one of the best parts, just to see the look on someone's face when they come in to pick up their cake and they're so happy and they're so excited. It makes me feel good. I get hugs a lot.
Trisha's Bakery is in downtown Milford on Walnut Street. If you go to her website, pattycakery.com, you'll understand what motivates her and her baking. She has a quote from Julia Child: "A party without a cake is just a meeting." And I think we can all agree with that.
Okay, well, I know one thing we can agree on. I need a slice. So next week on First, it's that crazy time of year. The Delaware legislature is wrapping up on Tuesday. Also, next week, there's a concern about bike safety in Delaware beach towns after the death of a 19-year-old Ukrainian woman killed while riding her bike on Route 1.
That is First for this week. We thank you for watching. For Shirley Min, Todd Bookman, and Nichelle Polston, I'm Mark Eichman. Have a great week. And don't forget to watch First Extra Truth Teller Monday at 9. We're going to leave you with some more scenes from Firefly.